Everybody, to tonight's session, putting your money to work locally, Community Loan Funds 101 with dogs barking in the background. This is part 5 of our local investment series, exploring how we can use our economic power to enhance and sustain our communities. So I'm Nancy LaRoe, who has 2 dogs barking at the door right now. So I work at Vital Communities in the local economy and food and farm realm. At Vital Communities, we cultivate the economic and environmental and civic vitality of the Valley. I'll be facilitating the conversation today, and I am joined by Erica Hoffman-Keast. You wave there, Erica. She is Executive Director of the Green Mountain Economic Development Corporation. That's a regional development corporation for Orange and Northern Windsor counties in Vermont, linking government, education, and private sector resources to help companies grow, improve, and thrive. Erica will be monitoring the chat tonight, and I am excited to be partnering with the Green Mountain Economic Development tonight. So before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that many of us are on unceded territory of the Abenaki. Great, thank you. Before we dive in, in addition to that appreciation, I'd like to thank the partners and sponsors for this local investment series. It's been wonderful collaborating with Erica at Green Mountain Economic Development Corporation, TLC Monadnock, and actually both New Hampshire and Vermont Community Loan Funds that are here tonight. And also a big thank you to the series sponsors. We couldn't have done this without their support. So before we dive in, some quick ground rules. Please stay on mute. You can share your questions in the chat. And in addition to that, if you could also share tonight where you're from and what brought you here. This evening, this event is being recorded. It'll be uploaded to the Vital Communities YouTube channel, and the link to the recording will be sent to everyone who registered. Also, please remember that this is an educational and informational event. What you hear tonight should not be construed as specific legal, accounting, or investment recommendations. And as I said, please put your questions in the chat as we proceed. Let's see. So the purpose, let me stop sharing my screen for a moment so we can see everybody. The purpose of tonight's conversation is to learn more about impact investing to support our communities, farms, our regional food system, renewable energy, affordable housing, local businesses, and thriving communities with community loan funds. We're at a moment that we have an opportunity to invest in our shared future right here in the Upper Valley by relocalizing our economy. Impact investing is a great way to put your money to work locally and supporting a more localized and regenerative economy that works for all. So tonight we'll hear from both Vermont and New Hampshire community loan funds, a loan fund investor, and a loan fund customer. And I will just, let's see, and we'll also have times for questions at the end. So to get us going, I'd like to welcome from the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund, Michelle Tawani, Director of Community Relations, and Charlene Anderson, the food farm lender there. And they will be sharing their screens.
Oh, wrong share. Hold on just a minute, sorry. Screen 2. Okay, I'm not on mute. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us to come and share more about what we do. Happy to do this with the Vermont Community Loan Fund as well. And it's really wonderful to have so many people. I just want to make sure you're seeing my slide, not my notes, Nancy. Okay.
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. So we are a nonprofit that provides lending where traditional lending institutions are not able to. We look at ourselves as a bridge between those that need the financial help and those that we can help provide the help. A bridge between supporters and borrowers so that neighbors can help neighbors. Localism at its best. On one side of the bridge, we rally community resources from supporters like you, and then we walk those resources across the bridge to meet borrowers where they're at and help fill capital gaps. We want to be the catalyst leveraging human and civic resources to enable traditionally underserved people to participate more fully in New Hampshire's economy. Whether it's providing loans and technical assistance, or complementing and extending the reach of conventional lenders in public institutions, or just bringing the people and institutions together to solve problems, we want to be there to help. So whenever there's a gap in funding for a family to buy a home, a neighborhood to buy their manufactured housing community, or a business to create or keep jobs, we want to be there to help fill the gap and make our state better. Our borrowers work really hard. They repay us over 97% of the time, so our loans are totally viable. And by acting as this bridge, we meet the needs of people, organizations, and businesses that are too often overlooked. And by doing so, we help to unleash their potential. But money alone is unable to build the local economy that we want. Relationships and customized technical assistance that we provide is what we consider our secret sauce. When we work with potential borrowers and do a deep assessment and get to know the owners, sometimes the capital that they originally requested isn't needed to do what they want to do. So the technical assistance and business coaching portion of what we do is just as important as filling the capital gaps. So here's how it works. Local people and institution invest with us, combined with our own capital, creates the pool of funds that we lend out. Right now, we have 170 million in our lending bucket. It's made up of 144 million in investments. That's money invested in us by individuals, banks, nonprofits, foundations, and churches, plus 29 million in donations and grants. We use this for lending and also to protect our investors from investment loss. So investments from investors and our net assets is what allows us to fund affordable housing, childcare, and business finance opportunities. It's really about pooling community resources to help fill capital gaps. That's what we do. And you'll see on the right-hand side of the bucket, since our inception in 1983, we've deployed 371 million in capital throughout New Hampshire to support affordable housing, childcare, and small businesses. So I really want to talk local. Over the last 6 years, we've loaned nearly $6.5 million in the Upper Valley area of New Hampshire. And what does that entail? It's 4 resident-owned manufactured housing communities like Muskoma Valley in Canaan and Lakeside Co-op in Enfield. With 3.8 million in loans, have secured home ownership for 107 affordable workforce homes and for individuals and families. 29 multifamily apartments like Parkhurst Community Housing in Lebanon, to renovate an existing apartment building with 18 one-bedroom apartments for low-income people, with the preference given to those who are chronically homeless. 26 people became homeowners through our Welcome Home Loan Mortgage Program with an average mortgage size of about $55,000. That's really affordable. 272,000 has been loaned to nonprofits like the New England Handicap Sports Association in Newbury and Whaleback Mountain in Enfield. We've also made loans to small businesses like Lou's Restaurant and Bakery in Hanover. And the thing is about that $6.5 million, we really would like to increase that. And I would like to implore you to think about us. Give us some referrals. The more you learn about us and hear about unmet community needs that may be a good mission match for us, a business, a nonprofit, childcare center, affordable housing opportunities, we'd really like to know. Affordable housing is a major part of what we do. We fund resident-owned manufactured housing communities, provide mortgages to purchase manufactured homes, and loans for multifamily housing projects. The biggest portion of our lending goes to manufactured home resident-owned communities, also known as ROCs. We focus here because they're so affordable. With an average home price of $55,000, that makes having manufactured housing one of New Hampshire's most important sources of affordable and workforce housing. But your manufactured home is not very secure if you don't own the land under it, which could be sold out from under you. But when residents join together to form a cooperative and purchase the land under their homes, that affordable home becomes more stable and secure. So I told you about our work in the Upper Valley in New Hampshire over the last 6 years, but this map actually shows all of the resident-owned manufactured housing cooperatives in the Upper Valley since our inception. It includes 13 ROCs and 486 affordable workforce homes. And currently there are 13 vacant lots in these ROCs, just waiting for the next family or individual to purchase and place a new affordable manufactured home. Mascoma Meadows, a 50-home resident-owned community in Lebanon, is the first ROC in New Hampshire producing solar power. We help the residents of Mascoma Meadows organize to buy their park as a cooperative, made them a loan to purchase the community, and continue coaching to help them manage their cooperative as a business. Mascoma Meadows recently set up a 384-panel solar array installed by Revision Energy. It's actually forecast to save the co-op's members about $270 annually. The array is built on a half-acre land donated to the co-op by a neighboring Abundant Life Church of God. We also offer fixed rate mortgages on manufactured homes in cooperative parks and for people who own their land on which their manufactured home is located. Our Welcome Home loan mortgages provide a better alternative to the predatory lending that used to be prevalent in this lending space. We also provide a community housing program. We could lend to nonprofit housing developers to help create more affordable homes for working families. We provide loans to nonprofit housing developers who are creating and preserving affordable rental housing for people with low incomes. I mentioned previously Parkhurst Community Housing in Lebanon, but another loan was to Visions for Creative Housing for their facility, Sunrise Farm in Enfield, which houses individuals with disabilities and offers a safe home-like environment. Their founder, actually, Sylvia Dow, was just recognized by the New Hampshire Center for Nonprofits for her important work in the Upper Valley. Quality childcare keeps the economy going. This was quite evident over the last year through the pandemic. We know that safe, affordable childcare is really tough to come by. So we work with childcare facilities to help ensure that families with low and moderate incomes will have access to these services. We often finance the transition from a church basement to their own facility, or by adding after school or infant care services. In addition, our flexible financing helps nonprofits buy real estate, renovate facilities, upgrade equipment, or expand their programming and services. We can actually offer short-term loans that bridge the gap between a project, a capital campaign, tax credits, or a grant award. One example of our nonprofit lending is a loan to the Upper Valley Sports Foundation, Whaleback Mountain in Enfield, a nonprofit ski mountain dedicated to providing affordable outdoor recreation activities to families and children. The loan helped to renovate the lodge. We help the underserved people of our state by providing loans to businesses to grow who naturally hire people without a four-year college degree. Our business finance team offers flexible financing and one-on-one business coaching. We use a variety of ways to position loans for the best success of our borrowers. This means more jobs created and preserved. And our motto is, when our borrowers succeed, we succeed. Over the next 10 minutes, you'll hear more about some of our business lending, including solar and farm food. Our solar financing is helping to lead New Hampshire into a more sustainable energy future. We have 3 types of solar related loans. The first is a direct loan to businesses or nonprofits to purchase solar infrastructure. We've actually done one recently in the Lakes region of New Hampshire for a senior housing apartment building with passive design and rooftop solar array. It lowers and stabilizes utility costs for the seniors who live in the building. We also do direct loans to solar businesses. Like any other business, solar company needs upfront working capital to finance the installation costs of its solar projects. And the third is the solar power purchase agreement loans. Unlike the private sector, nonprofits, B Corps, and municipalities are unable to benefit from the federal tax incentives. And one way to extend those benefits to them is through the solar power purchase agreements, also known as PPAs, where the nonprofit B Corp or municipality is paired with the private solar investor who can take advantage of the federal tax program. The nonprofit B Corp or municipality hosts the solar system and purchases the power at a competitive electricity rate from the private investor. Then the nonprofit B Corp or municipality has no upfront costs and can buy the system at a price significantly less than the installation cost after 5 years. We have 2 examples of recent loans. The first one is through a power purchase agreement. The first one was Muskoma Meadows, which I showed you early on in the presentation for the resident-owned community, a solar array in your area, and a 1,300 solar panel installation at Badger Company, a B Corp, natural health and beauty product maker in Gilsum, New Hampshire, which is shown on this slide. Revision Energy worked with Badger on a larger array than is currently needed because they knew eventually they would grow and need more. The project is estimated to save Badger $1.6 million over 25 years and $3.8 million over 40 years. Not only will the array provide significant cost savings for powering its 23,000 square foot facility, but it will also allow the company to support the community by sending some of that extra solar back into the community. So it's a real win-win for all. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Charlene Anderson, who is our farm food lender, who will share with you all about this important source of funding and specific example of how the program can work.
Thanks, Michelle. Our goal is really to make businesses in the food system more resilient so that the businesses can offer better quality jobs and people can source more local food. The first step we take is to build the relationship with the business owners, to understand what their vision and their goals are, and to find ways that we can be helpful. We take the time to assess what's truly needed. The need may be capital. It may be business coaching. Often it's both. There are some situations in which it may not be good to get capital immediately. So at those times, we encourage the owner to bring in a coach, address the challenges, and we'll assist them where possible with that coach. And often that results in a loan in a year or 2 or less. Next slide. We work with businesses throughout the food system, from farms to food producers to retailers. And we find these businesses share a few things in common that makes them a really good match for our mission. Typically, people of low income work in these jobs. These businesses can easily distinguish themselves and they have the opportunity to grow. Many provide means of access to healthy food. And many owners really work hard to provide quality jobs, and they seek assistance on how to improve that job quality. Next slide. Yeah. So I'm excited to say that as of the end of 2020, our impact to businesses working in the farm and food sector has been over $14 million in loans and over 12,000 hours of business coaching that's been received by them. We've helped impact 590 jobs, and over 2,700 acres have been supported as working lands. So one of the things that we really look to do is to support change in collaborative ways. So we want to support systems change within the food system. And we're often relied upon when working on projects that involve multiple partners to bring our ability to think creatively and seek solutions that work for all. In the area of capital, we collaborate with other lenders and with community members. Our first approach is to first make the loan where other lenders have said no, and we can say yes. Now we can do this because, as Michelle explained to you in her bucket example, we get our lending capital from a variety of resources. Thus, that allows us to help the businesses with flexible loan structuring. Our second approach in capital is to collaborate with other lenders, whether it's an agricultural lender, a Main Street bank, or community members to make a loan. The other area where we seek system change is in partnering with conservation groups. In the past, land conservation groups used to rally people around saving the farm, but too often it was really ended up only preserving the land and not addressing the viability of the farm business. So the systems change that we're working on is integrating business viability, succession planning, production, at the same time as you're working on soil and land conservation. And this is to address the long-term farm viability, food security, and working lands. So that way, when the farmer gets off their tractor at the end of the day and is ready to start working on that planning, we have farm viability and conservation partners available to address both needs. So I want to share a story of a systems change that we made around capital. And this is a story about Temple Wilton Community Farm, which is a 140 plus acre biodynamic farm in Wilton, New Hampshire. It's known as the first farm using community supported agriculture model. This is where community members buy farm shares at the beginning of the season, which allow the farm to plant according to the number of members who purchase shares. Temple Wilton Community Farm has a really strong shared community life and culture. The community members are committed to the success of the farm, and the farmers are committed to providing the highest quality of food and stewardship of the land. So a few years ago, a parcel of land that the farm was leasing was offered for sale to the farmers. Now this parcel was in the middle of their fields. The price tag was such that it could be a burden to the farm, and the seller really wanted to sell it quickly. So they started seeking bank financing, and the farm business faced really a lot of challenges when they started to do that. One, it was a nonprofit structure that banks weren't interested in. The banks had higher interest rates than the business could really bear. And there was a lack of down payment that the farms didn't have, but was required. So the community members and the farmers rallied together to see what options were available, and we were contacted. And after many discussions and due diligence, we provided a creative solution. Next slide. So the solution was 23 individuals made investments into the community loan fund, thus becoming investors. These investments were used to provide the farmer a lower interest rate, and it gave us a backstop that acts like collateral, because the individuals who invested with us pledged their investment back to us to secure the loan. So the outcome, next slide. The outcome was farmland and infrastructure was conserved. We supported and guided the community investments, and the farm received a loan structure it could manage. And today, the farm remains viable. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Charlene. It's so impressive how the community can come together to solve a problem. That was a great example to share. So now I'd like to share with you how we do it. We take investments from community and loan them out to our borrowers. That bridge example that I shared earlier, we act as a liaison between investors and the borrowers. We help bring the people with money and the desire to do good in the community with those folks who need the money to bring stability and prosperity in their lives. Individuals, companies, and nonprofits locally and across the country invest their money with us. We pay them a fixed rate of interest, and we loan this money into the community for the benefit of people with low and moderate incomes. We have a 37-year history of repaying every single one of our investors. 76% of our 667 investors are individuals. Many individuals use this option to save for college or retirement as they won't need the money for a while, so they achieve their goals while doing social good in their community. Examples of institutions who invest with us include nonprofits like Vital Communities and Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, and banks such as Mascoma and Ledyard. In the Upper Valley region, we actually have 33 individuals that have more than $2.8 million with the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund. So that's $2.8 million invested by individuals in the Upper Valley, helping to support the $6.5 million in loans we provided into the Upper Valley region of New Hampshire. That's true neighbors helping neighbors, hyper-local investing at its best. And if there's any of you on the Zoom with us today that are investors with us, thank you for that. Your investment's going right back into your community. We'd love to invite more investors, and we'd actually love to double the 6.5 million in loans and we'd like to enlist you in trying to figure out how to get those referrals to us. So if you know of any businesses, nonprofits, childcare centers, or affordable housing opportunities, we'd like to know. Like I said, 76% of our investors are individuals. Investments start at just $1,000. And interest rates range from 0 to 3%, depending on the length of the investment. So for you as an individual or an institution, you're welcome to join and invest with impact, including in your own area of the state. But the need for lower cost capital keeps increasing based on the needs of our borrowers, especially local farms, solar, and affordable housing. They're requiring us to lend at even lower rates. Because of that, we've created the 100% Opportunity Club. Individuals and institutions can choose to have 0% interest on their investment with us. This means 100% of the interest that they would have earned is instead used to offer lower cost capital to our borrowers. We have nearly 100 investors participating in the 100% Opportunity Club. I'd actually like to acknowledge that my colleague, Ken Kuhnhart, our Director of Investor Relations, is actually on this Zoom, and he can answer some of your questions at the end. I wanted you to make sure that you had our contact information if you wanted to reach out and follow up. And I just also want to just repeat where I said at the start of this conversation, that it's just so impressive that there's so many people in your area looking to figure out like how to give back and invest in your community. Now I'd actually like to introduce Cotton Cleveland. She and her husband live in the Upper Valley, and they have been longtime investors in the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund. She'll share her firsthand experience as being an investor and why she invests with us. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Cotton.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Charlene, also. It's a little hard to add anything to these two competent and wonderful people working at the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund, which is one of my husband's and my absolute favorite organizations in New Hampshire. So we really like to give our money locally. We like to give our money to help people help themselves. And that is exactly what the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund does. I first met Juliana Eads, who just retired. She was the founding executive director 35 years ago. She started at 37 years ago. And she could walk into any bank with any, pick them, Goldman Sachs, First Bank of New Hampshire, whatever, and she could talk about the investments. And she has built an organization that has incredibly, you're talking program here today, but what I'm looking at is where my investment dollars go, because they're people like John Hamilton and this incredibly talented staff. They are really walking the talk about their money. They are not making up. They're probably smarter. Ooh, I hate to say it if I have bankers in this room, but they're really smarter than a lot of bankers that I know. And for sure, they're a lot smarter than I am. So they are doing really great stuff with your invested dollars, with our invested dollars, which is they're not just giving it back, they're also investing it and making money, right? So they're doing a whole lot of wonderful things. And they're also smart enough to come up with some of these more complex deals that Michelle and Charlene were just talking about. So they're really useful brains in that response. So we love what they do. We were first attracted to the manufactured housing option, which is in home ownership, which you can just imagine owning your own home is just amazing. But owning your own home on your own land is a total blessing. And I don't know if you didn't even really talk, Michelle, about there's also training for the home ownership people in leadership and how do they actually know how to keep on taking care of the property, but also taking care of the community property, because that's a whole skill set in and of itself. So a great cause, a great, incredibly efficient, well-organized, just amazing staff. And I have to say, from an investment point of view, so just quickly, I started out just before I met my husband. We've been married 25 years. So from 35 years ago, I just could only afford, in my mind, $100. So that went to the annual fund. And I felt good about that because I wanted to support Julie and the venture. And then my husband and I got married and he picked right up on it. And we started to talk about when can we invest. And he loved that idea, but we were also putting 6 kids through college. So it took us a little while, but at some point we just said, we have to do this. This organization is so amazing. So we invested and we've been getting our percentage. I'm sorry to say we have been taking it up until recently. And last year they asked for extra funds because of the COVID situation. So we were able to donate our income interest back. And then I didn't even know there was a club. Ken, when I called you about, hey, how do I avoid getting interest, getting taxed on my interest that I just gave back, I didn't even know there was a club. Now I know I am now part of the Opportunity Club. So because John and I finally said, wait a minute, okay, the kids are through college, they're way fledged. And so we can give the percent, we give our interest back, and we're very happy about that. So we just love this organization. I really strongly encourage you to think about investing in any small or large way. I think I'm on the Ledyard Bank board, which I trust and love. And I've actually even encouraged them to donate money. I'm not donate, but, invest money for, blah, 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 for a whole lot of good reasons. But I trust the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund as much as I trust the Ledyard Bank to take care of my money and to take care of other people. So your money's going to be safe when you invest it. 37 years is an awesome track record and thank you for asking me. If you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them later on in the program.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Do you have anything to We're good to go. Excellent. Great. Thank you so much, Cotton. Thank you, Charlene, and thank you, Michelle. Now we'll jump over the Connecticut River and welcome Jake Ide, Director of Investment and Philanthropy from the Vermont Community Loan Fund. Take it away, Jake.
Hey there, everybody. Can everyone see my screen? A big, bad graphic with the Vermont Community Loan Fund logo in the middle of it? Okay, I'm a visual learner, and you can hear me, I assume people are giving me the thumbs up. I'm a visual learner, so I like slides like this. Unfortunately, I'm not an artist. And so this slide is a pale facsimile of what I wish it was, which is the idea of the Mobius strip, right? The infinity symbol that just keeps going and keeps building. You know, I think the metaphor to describe a community loan fund as a bridge between capital and those that need capital is brilliant. I totally agree with that. And the Vermont Community Loan Fund is that as well. I like the Mobius strip just because it's an infinity machine. And that has been the story of the Vermont Community Loan Fund, that the capital can flow from investors through the loan fund out to borrowers, be repaid at a repayment rate better than most banks. And remember, these are loans that traditional lenders, and again, not trying to just besmirch banks at all, but traditional lenders would call risky. Pretty much every single loan in our portfolio, our repayment rate is better than the bank. And so the borrowers repay it back to the loan fund repays the investors, and it grows over time. And that's been our story. When you assign numbers to this little diagram right here, the loan portfolio, which really is how we think about our work, not necessarily the investment portfolio, but the loan portfolio as of the end of last year was at about $30.5 million, representing 234 loans. And I'll get into the actual impacts of what that actually means. Dollars are great, but they're not really all that we're shooting for. In fact, they're not really the main thing we're shooting for. There are some incredible social impacts that come out of that portfolio, which are really how we assess the success of the loan fund, and I'll get to those in a second. We talk more about those. But from the investor side of things, we're talking about 450 investors who have, many of whom who have multiple investments, so close to 700 investments, representing about $33 million invested in the Vermont Community Loan Fund. Oh, I need to advance it over here and not over there. That would work. So a term you're going to hear from us over and over is mission. We are mission driven or mission led. And this is that mission. The Vermont Community Loan Fund is creating opportunities leading to healthy communities and financial stability for all Vermonters. I need to go back. Oh my gosh. I am sorry. I'm going to stop that for a sec and go back to the slide I wanted to go to and share it again. This all worked so well before.
No worries. We're good.
Thanks for bearing with me. So, see that again. Oh, this is mortifying. Hold on a second.
You sent the PowerPoint to us. Would it be helpful if we shared our screen?
Yeah, would you mind doing that? Can I stop sharing and you can just do that? That would work for me.
Okay, hold on just a minute. Let me find it.
I'm terribly sorry. That's mortifying. I can see the slides, but you can't see the slides. So really, I'm on the third slide now.
Okay, hold on.
Which says, who is VCLF and who needs a loan? The slide before that one, I believe.
How's that?
Yep, there you go. That's great. Thank you very much. I'm sorry about that, folks. So this is a quick slide, who we are and what we do. VCLF, again, is a mission-driven, community-focused alternative lender, so an alternative to the banks and credit unions, like Michelle talked about with the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund. We do a lot of co-lending with banks. our ability to come in a subordinate position behind the bank can sometimes get deals done where the bank can only go so far, the credit union can only go so far, and the community loan fund is much more flexible and adaptable and can come in behind them in a lot of cases and make deals go forward that otherwise wouldn't. We're a holistic lender in that we really put the borrower first. And so the deals that we tend to do tend to be creative and patient and flexible to meet the borrower's needs. We're dealing with a lot of seasonal businesses sometimes, and those businesses will have cash flows at different times of the year, and we can accommodate our repayment schedule to that and adapt to that. And it actually showed up a lot this year. Folks want to talk about what, 2020, what 2020 looked like last year. It was a very different kind of year for us. We were allowed and able to show our borrowers a lot more patience and flexibility to the point where we basically froze payments on about 1/3 of our loan portfolio and forewent that interest. We just let folks go for 3 months to 6 months to get back on their feet, to get the PPP loans that they needed from SBA, and we helped them do that. And so it really, we were able to keep float a lot of folks along in a way that traditional lenders just weren't. Like Michelle talked about, our special sauce is what we call the Business Resource Center, which is kind of all the other wraparound services that come with a loan. Our folks don't need just capital. They often need the expertise and the help and the education about how to effectively grow their business, capital aside. So we're talking about marketing and financial planning and systems like operations and payroll and things like that. We can help them build those systems, and we do that all free to the borrower. That's where a lot of our grant support will come from, and a lot of the philanthropy that flows into the loan fund that you saw on that first slide. That makes a lot of that work possible. And our repayment rate that we've experienced about 2% of our 115 loaned over the 35 million years. About 2% of that has not been recovered. That is because that Business Resource Center gives our borrowers everything they need besides the loans to be able to thrive. And there at the bottom are the list of the folks that we lend to. So businesses of all shapes, sizes, stages, situations, businesses in crisis. We're not afraid of that. If we believe that the model is strong and that the future is strong and that there's a great way that we can help you get out of the trouble you're in, we are all in. We are not scared by businesses in transition. That's how business works. It's not a steady climb all the time to fame and glory. We also do a lot of lending for affordable housing development, both for and nonprofit. All of the loan fund's money lend towards the development of housing is for affordable housing. We are often involved with for-profit developments when there is a tranche of that development that's going to be affordable. We will restrict our money to just that. So we can be part of larger mixed-use development, larger economic development, community development, the kinds of things like one project in a small town can make a big difference. We can come in and be a part of that, even if it's not necessarily an entirely affordable development. We also lend to nonprofit organizations and community facilities and early care and learning programs that are creating quality slots here in Vermont. So I want to talk a little bit, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I think it's important as you're doing your due diligence as investors and thinking about investing in either of our loan funds or other CLFs around the country. I don't want to go too far into the acronyms, but there's an acronym that you should know, which is CDFI, and that is Community Development Financial Institution. It is a certain class of organizations like both of ours and others besides. So there's loan funds, but there's also community development banks, the community development credit unions and venture funds. These are folks that are providing traditional financial instruments and services, but doing it again, led by mission, with mission first, with the ultimate beneficiary being community development and wealth creation for folks that don't have as much access to capital. So CDFIs were created as a class in 1994, even though a lot of our organizations already existed and were doing the work. But we were regulated by the Department of Treasury, so we're overseen by the government, and they take that very seriously, which is great. They should, because CDFIs are a massive movement. We're talking about over 1,000 organizations with $108 billion under management back in 2017. We've grown since then quite a bit, and especially in the last year or two. The stats won't be out for a couple of years on what CDFIs look like today. But we are, as an alternative class of lender, we've had a lot to do in the last couple of years, and CDFIs have risen up to meet that challenge. We have deep partnerships with many aspects of the government, including Treasury and USDA Rural Development, the SBA, the EDA. The Vermont Community Loan Fund also has a number of relationships and projects in the works with various agencies in the Vermont state government as well. So we're very tied into the traditional capitalist structure. We work with banks, we work with the government. We are the piece that is accessing those funds and deploying them for community development to meet the greatest possible need. We're a 501c3 nonprofit as well. It's important to note that the CDFI fund is also an incredible supporter of the Vermont Community Loan Fund. They've essentially matched every philanthropic dollar that's flown our way since around 1996 and doubled that. That has gone into, not to pay us, unfortunately for me, but gone into our equity pool. So that is the money that allows us to borrow more debt, and is the foundation of our portfolio, our investment portfolio that protects all of those investors. So the CDFI fund is largely responsible for the success that we've had growing to be able to support our investors and protect them as well. Can we jump to the next one? Thanks. So what are we looking for? We're looking for community returns alongside financial returns. Investors are looking for financial returns, and that's okay, but we're looking for more. And the folks that are coming to the loan fund are looking for more. We're looking for jobs. We're looking to finance folks that don't traditionally have access to capital. In the Vermont Community Loan Fund's world, that is women first and foremost. I have a slide coming up about the role that women play in the Vermont Community Loan Fund, but the loan fund would not exist without women, both as borrowers and investors today. Women drive the Vermont Community Loan Fund, I'm proud to say. And there you've got some kind of top line stats. So over the almost 35 million years, we've loaned 115 million to create or preserve jobs for about 7,000 folks, almost 4,500 households living in affordable housing, quality early care and learning for about 4,600 children and families. And we've financed nonprofits that are supporting over just hundreds of thousands of Vermonters. So the next slide is that women's slide. And this is a really important one, just because I think that it shows that when you have a good idea and it's going to create good change in the community, women are going to get behind that. So it's a badge of honor for sure. About 2 out of every $3 that are loaned out by the loan fund right now are in the hands of women-led businesses and women-led organizations, including 100% of the folks in our early care and learning portfolio. It wouldn't surprise you to learn that the people that are basically people that are the early care and learning industry in Vermont are 100% women. And also this stat's been growing more and more too, as women are becoming, are getting more and more control over assets, but 53% of the impact capital invested in the loan fund right now is controlled by women as well. We walk that talk. VCLF is largely a women-led and run organization. Almost half the board of directors and 3/4 of the board leadership. In the 15 years I've been here, our board president has always been a woman. 73% of staff, 50% of the leadership staff, those of us in the director level, and 2 out of 3 of the business resource center staff. So 2 out of 3 people that we have talking to borrowers about how to do business and how to do it better are women. So we periodically survey our investors, and here's what they tell us about why they come to us and what they're looking for when they come to Vermont. They're looking to align their assets with their values. They're looking to have some impact in the world and to be the kind of change, lead the kind of change that they'd like to see in their own communities. Many of our investors are putting their money to work with us right now while they don't need it. Maybe they've received an inheritance and they're saving it to send the kids to college. They can park it with us for a couple of years and get it back whenever they want it. And we're able to fulfill that function for them so that we can put idle assets to use while they're idle. Our investors have a deep love of place. They want to invest in Vermont businesses, and in Vermont organizations. They want to invest in Vermonters to make Vermont better and stronger. They can be attracted for a couple of different reasons. They can be attracted by the entire diversity of the portfolio and the risk that's spread over the entire portfolio. Or we have a couple of programs that allow folks to invest specifically in certain program areas that are important to them. So we have a food, farms, and forest fund, which is restricted just to agriculture, food businesses, forestry businesses. The Next Generation Fund will make sure that 100% of your investment goes to early care and learning programs. And we can invest in affordable housing through a program called the Vermont Housing Tax Credit, which is actually a pre-tax credit that you can receive for investing in the loan fund and restricting your assets to that. We can talk a little bit about products later if folks have questions, but like Michelle, our most common product works like a CD. So the investor obviously picks the amount, but picks the term, and we assign an interest rate to that term. That interest rate is fixed over the term, and at the end of the term, we'll let you know, and we can repay you or you can reinvest it, whatever the current rates are. We have another couple of different products that might appeal to different people in different financial situations as well, but that CD product is our most common. So list of investors, and I just want to show really quickly, roll through a couple of the slides so you can get a sense of the our portfolio. The predominance of our money comes from individuals and either directly or through their asset managers or financial advisors. It's really uncommon for CDFIs. Most CDFIs are capitalized by banks. The New Hampshire Community Loan Fund and the Vermont Community Loan Fund are the outliers, and we take that community aspect of our identity very seriously. So you can see in this slide that I think it's about 53% of our capital invested right now is in the hands of, was controlled by individuals. And if you want to scroll down to the next one, you can see by numbers, about 8 out of 10 VCLF investors are actual human beings, individuals and couples and families. So I guess I'm about at the end of my time, and I had another couple of slides about different projects that we could talk about, but I believe we've got an actual VCLF borrower with us right now. I can't see if you're there. Nora, you are there. I do see you. So Nora Lake, let me scroll down to my Nora Lake slide. There is a slide at the end with Sweetland Farm. Nora came to us in 2017 looking for a loan for barn and farm stand improvements for her Sweetland Farm in Norwich. We made a loan that I believe went to such purposes as helping build out or expand a veggie wash and pack station, a teaching kitchen, and some coolers. So some pretty neat farm improvements that hopefully, or I certainly understand, have continued to bring a bunch of folks out to Sweetland Farm. So Nora, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Hi, thank you. My name is Nora Lake, and I'm the owner at Sweetland Farm in Norwich. And we are just starting our 10th season here at the farm. I just came in from remaying carrots and spinach, so the season is officially started. So yeah, I bought the farm in the spring of 2012, excuse me, from, we worked with the Vermont Land Trust to purchase the property. And we started pretty small, sort of testing the waters. I had been working for another farmer in the community for about 5 years and had done my sort of boots on the ground training there in Heartland, Vermont. But came up here, started Sweetland primarily to be a CSA farm, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And this is a form of farming, if you haven't heard of it before, where members in the community sort of join the farm for a season. They buy essentially a share of the season's harvest. And so we started very small. The first year that we were here, it was just me, myself, and I, and occasionally I would call my family in and ask them to help out. But I didn't have any employees. I had a very small number of CSA members that first year. And, you know, we had some amazing infrastructure here at the farm, but very little of it was sort of vegetable specific. So I was doing a lot of workarounds the first few years that we were here. Harvest would happen and we would bring it all down to the barn and sort of set up folding tables, and there were lots of tubs and wading around in the mud because there wasn't very good drainage. We would have to do all of our harvest the day that it was going to be distributed because we didn't have any way to cool the produce, and so I would just fill up big tubs full of water, and that was my refrigeration, setting it in the shade. Don't tell produce safety. But we made it work, and the farm started to grow, and we had a business plan that we had written when we first started the farm that we were sort of working off of. Our goal was to take on very little debt as we started the farm, sort of beyond the original mortgage that we had to take out to buy the property. So we were trying to grow slowly using the money that we were making from CSA shares, any of our own personal money that we were investing in it. We have tried to apply for a lot of grants over the years. But as we started to get bigger and sort of realize that we needed to graduate away from the kludgy systems that we had started with, we started to think a little bit about whether we would take on a little bit of debt to sort of get over the next hurdle. So as you mentioned, in the end of 2017, we found out about the Vermont Community Loan Fund's Sprout program, which is a low interest loan that I think is what you were talking about, that's sort of specifically targeted at food and forest businesses. And so we applied for that loan for $60,000 to build a new wash and pack facility at the farm that was going to be a major upgrade. And we did get the loan, which was great. It started out as a 0% interest for the first 2 years. So that was amazing. We were able to use the funds as a match to a grant that we had applied for from the Vermont Produce Safety Agency. And so it was really important for us to be able to have that capital to show produce safety that we could match the funds and get a little bit more leverage on their grant money. And then after 2 years, we transitioned to a 2% interest rate. So really very helpful for us, people who are sort of do-it-yourselfers and a little bit hesitant about taking on debt, to be able to do this in such a low interest way. We did build the wash and pack. It's amazing to be able to be under a roof on a concrete floor with proper drainage and a walk-in refrigerator has just been a total game changer for our farm. At this point, we're at about 300 CSA members, and there's no way that we would be able to be operating under the old methods. So that in and itself, just the project itself has been awesome. But then I also wanted to mention that I had such a nice experience working with the Business Resource Center staff. In particular, I worked with Elena Gustafson, and she was awesome. She reached out to me as soon as we had gotten the loan to make sure that I knew that she was available to meet with her. And she really left it open in terms of how I would utilize her help. And over the next year or so, we worked on looking at my business plan and sort of fine-tuning it and doing some reality checks. She basically gave me a crash course in financial sheets and helped me understand the importance of a profit and loss sheet and a statement of cash flows and how to use all of the sheets together. You know, she went so far as to get into the nitty-gritty details of what's my marketing and advertising going to be for next season as we start to continue to grow the business. And so she was really, really friendly and helpful, and made an experience that I had been nervous about just incredibly easy and really kind of heartwarming, which is not a word that I would typically think to put with a bank or a lending organization. So that's about all I have for a spiel, but it's been a really, really great experience, and I'm very grateful for the help.
Thank you, Nora. Thanks for sharing with us.
Super. So we definitely have time for some questions, and then, you know, if there aren't a ton, we can also skip back and hear a couple of Jake's stories, since he did prepare some of other farm stories.
I have more slides. I can do it myself.
He's got more slides.
I can wreck this whole thing all over again.
No, I got it pulled up too.
Okay.
So, but I thought we'd see, I'm not sure if I saw any in the chat, Erica. Were there any questions? But if people have any questions,
Not yet.
This would be a great time to throw them into the chat.
Nancy, I have to go, but thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Carola, for joining. There's one in the chat right now. Thanks,
Yes.
Mike.
So we have a question from Mike. Mike, would you like to read the question?
Sure. I'm wondering how common it is for a group of investors to work with Vermont Community Loan Fund or New Hampshire Community Loan Fund for a project that those investors might have in mind. You know, I'm thinking actually in our town of Thetford, a piece of property recently became available. It currently has a store and a couple rental properties on it. And it could be a great place for more rental properties and, you know, a sort of a walkable store, a nice little community hub. And so I thought, well, gosh, I know some people might be interested in investing in that. And so, you know, it's how often the investors pitch the project and how does that work?
Who wants to take that?
Well, I can speak to our experience, and actually, there's one model is actually a group of folks that we've been working with in the Upper Valley called the White River Investment Club, and there might be members. Mike, you might be a member of the White River Investment Club, or there might be folks on the call right now. Forgive me for not knowing everyone, but that was an example where you know, just because of the loan fund model, typically we don't flow a specific investment to a specific project because that eliminates our ability to spread the risk. So in theory, it's all coming, you know, like with Michelle's model, it's all coming into a bucket and then it's flowing out of the bucket. And the bucket is what protects all the drops of water in the bucket, is the corpse of the bucket. So we haven't really had things where someone will come in with a specific project in mind and then we'll flow the money through that project. What we have done is with investment clubs, an investment club can make their own decisions. They can park the money with us in one of our lower interest accounts, but a more fluid option where their idle funds are with us and they make withdrawals. They meet and decide regularly where they're going to invest in the businesses they're going to invest in. And they ask us to cut the check and we cut the check out of that fund and we kind of manage that flow of capital for them. So that's not quite what you're talking about, but it's the closest that we get. I don't know if maybe Michelle with New Hampshire's developed that kind of model better than we have.
You're muted, Michelle.
I think I'd learn after 13 months. I'm not familiar with us doing something like that, but I am familiar with you know, like an initiative that we have going out over on the Seacoast, where a resident-owned community needs to do a revitalization initiative. And but they can't afford any additional lot rent increases, which is the amount that they pay monthly for their home to be on the cooperative's land. So we needed to create a opportunity to get investors, get people to donate at 0% or to donate so that we could lend out at a much lower rate to make the project go forward. So it's like there have been initiatives like that where we've helped to rally, just like the Temple Wilton example, community resources to help fund an initiative or in a specific area.
And I think we have a couple of quick questions that kind of relate to this, I think, from Richard Balaguer. I'm sorry, sir, if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Would you like to come on and share a little bit more?
Yes, it's Balaguer, like Gallagher with the B.
Great, thank you. So he's interested in whether or not the investments are FDIC.
No, we're not
No.
FDIC insured. It's an unsecured promissory note. So in theory, if the loan fund were to go belly up, we could lose all the money and all the investors would be out of their funds. That said, we do a lot of things to ensure that that won't happen. And like Michelle said, we've never failed to repay an investor with interest as promised, as expected, ever in the 35 years of the loan fund, no matter how big we were.
Jake, I'd like to just jump in here and comment on that, because
Go for it.
if you remember the maple sugar bucket, so we have $29 million of our own capital. In addition to that, we have an additional 8.6 million of subordinate debt. So that's a significant amount of capital, 4 times more than we've ever lost in our history, that stands to protect all of our senior debt investors. So that's something that's very important to understand. It's our capital and our subordinate debt first that protects investors from any loss. We also keep 10% of our regular debt investments, approximately $13.5 million as a liquidity reserve in case anyone wants to, request repayment that's not expected. So we hold back that money. And then we have the traditional other protections, such as, the allowance for loan loss reserve, which is managed very properly, just like Vermont does, just like a bank. So there are a number of protections that we have in place to not to guarantee, because past performance is no future guarantee. But if we were ever to lose a penny of our investors' money, I think we'd be out of business. So that's really high priority for us.
We also, just to be clear, we while we lend to folks that banks have usually decided they're not going to lend to, we do lend very similarly to a bank. So we fully secure all the loans that we make with real assets, whether that's business assets or personal guarantee or collateral, real estate collateral. So the portfolio is also secured just like a portfolio would be traditionally. And Ken's right. Yeah, we've got millions of dollars at play that would essentially be the first loss money.
There's also a firm called Aeris. It's AERIS, which actually community loan funds can sign up for, and they actually go through a very thorough review of both impact for a community loan fund and financial soundness. And that rating is produced usually every year to 18 months. It's very much like an S&P rating. So that's an additional source of comfort, primarily for our institutional investors that look at us, very closely as far as our financial condition is concerned.
Richard had a follow-up question about are either of the community loan funds B Corp?
No, we're not.
No.
And if I'm not capturing this correctly, Richard, please come on and let me know. But I think that your interest is in whether either of the community loan funds have specific minority lending opportunities or tools.
So we have, we're working with a group in Manchester, New Hampshire, to do some interviews with the Black and Brown business owners echo. I don't know if you heard that. And really doing, like, they went out and they surveyed like 35 businesses to find out, like, you know, what's working for them, what's not working for them, what's been their banking experience, do they need any more capital? And so we're doing that. The research actually was just completed. And so now we're actually trying to figure out, okay, what can we do next? Because we want more of our resources to go to the BIPOC community beyond just Manchester, New Hampshire. But we just started there to sort of see, you know, do some interviewing and hear from the business owners themselves. So it's actually an initiative that that we're working on, and we want to make sure that you know, our lending gets to you know, those businesses.
Richard, you came off of mute. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I was just asking what the actual track record is, not what your intention
Oh, okay.
is.
Thanks for clarifying.
I can certainly speak to that. Or Michelle, do you want to speak to yours?
The track record, I don't know the numbers. I don't have the statistics in terms of like how much of our lending has gone to the BIPOC community. So I really can't answer that. We have a lender that Charlene, a borrower that Charlene can talk to, who came to us probably about a year ago, and was looking for a loan, but Charlene was able to provide some technical assistance to get her loan ready. And Charlene, you can finish the story so that you can share the MOLA story.
Sure. Yeah, so this particular borrower, the company's name is Mola Foods. She came to us back in 2019 looking for a small loan. Wasn't really quite ready, that kind of not ready for capital example. We provided some business coaching to her. And then in 2021, we provided a loan to her to move into a retail space where she could prepare food as well as sell it using her specialty blends that really come from, as she says, culture in a bottle foods.
Jake, did you have something to add to the?
Yeah, sure. We've been doing a lot of soul searching on this, certainly over the last year since George Floyd's murder, but honestly before that as well. You know, again, we're mission led, and our mission is social and economic justice. And you know, if our mission is to get get capital into the hands of folks that do not have access to it, there is no better example than BIPOC Vermonters, who through, you know, centuries of systematic racism have been denied the kinds of opportunities that white Vermonters have. In the last year, we've been approaching that in a couple of different ways. We're developing, and to go back to, you know, I want to be really clear to Richard and honor your question. Our track record is not what we want. Our track record is probably between 1% or 2% of the loans that we've made have been to BIPOC Vermonters, actually putting capital in the hands of BIPOC Vermonters. At most, it's probably maybe the statistical average for Vermont, which is, I think Vermont is 96% Caucasian or white. And so, you know, at most we might have 4%, but it by any measure should be much higher than that. If those communities have a harder time accessing capital, then our job is to be there first, to be above the statistical mean, and be doing a lot more. And that's our goal right now. And I won't go into it too much because I know that you wanted to talk about track record, not intention. We have made a commitment to lend $1 million at 0%, no interest, to Black Vermonters. That's a racial justice loan fund that'll be rolling out in a couple of months this summer. That's one way we've been doing it. We were a licensed Paycheck Protection Program lender through the Small Business Administration. Businesses all across the country were able to get PPP loans, and we were able to coordinate those for all of our borrowers and anyone else really. But the only place we went was the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity to see what we could do for BIPOC, that are BIPOC sole proprietors, mostly folks that weren't even aware maybe that they were able to get these forgivable loans. And so we were able to do a bunch of Paycheck Protection Program loans for BIPOC Vermonters through CBOEO this year, which was an experience that we'll continue to build on. So again, I don't want to talk too much about intention, but the intention is there. The intention is very real. This is where we need to be, and this is where our society needs us to be. And CDFIs in other places where BIPOC folks make up more of the population are more active in this space. And I think it's incumbent upon the CDFIs like us in the Northeast, in the rural, more homogeneous Northeast, to really step up and figure out how we're going to do this.
Thanks,
And
Jake.
if I could just add to, just kind of as I was sitting here thinking, racking, we've done a lot with the farmers that work with the Organization of Refugee and Immigrant Success. And quite a few years ago, the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund had an IDA program, individual development account, I think it was, where it provided a loan kind of it could be for personal or it could be for business. And so we worked with 8 different farmers in that community to help them develop business plans and then provide a loan through that program, which that program had a match. It was I think it was a government funded, or a percentage of it was government funded, so it provided a match. So we have done a lot, and we've continued to work with that community.
Thanks, Charlene. Another question that came in is, what's the minimum time to hold a CD? And I don't know if that's the same for both community funds or different.
1 year for us.
1
Although
year.
we have products, we have a money market-ish account, which has no minimum term. So it's a lower interest account, but the investor can make withdrawals. That's different than our term account, which is the CD account, and the minimum there is a year.
Okay.
We're a little different. Once you made an investment and pick your maturity and your interest rate, this is a hold to maturity investment, because quite frankly, 100% of our investor funds are out in the field. So we are not like a CD where you can request an early redemption. That's why it's very important that I explain to our investors that they understand their liquidity needs, and make sure that they understand that they're investing for the full term based upon the interest rate that they get.
Great, thank you. And another question, Charlene mentioned some investors pledged investment back to the loan fund. Can she explain a little bit more about that? Oh, Ken, would you like to field that?
I can jump in on that if you'd like.
Yeah.
So basically, as Charlene mentioned with Temple Wilton, we have 23 investors that actually made investments with us, but there is an option to have that investment coded as a guarantee. So if, and we're also investors as well in Temple Wilton, the Community Loan Fund. I'm not sure exactly what the ratio is. It's probably about 50-50. We have money invested with them, but they also have money invested. So if the investment itself or the loan ever lost money, then these people guaranteeing that investment would have the risk of loss shared with us as well. That's what a guaranteed investment is. Very few, I mean, there are only very small number of examples where investors choose to guarantee, but we do have a number of them in our B and C group, which I don't know, Charlene, if you wanted to talk about that any further.
It's not, nothing's coming to my mind right now. Sorry, Ken.
No, I mean, there are a number of investors that we have that actually look to do direct investing with us. In other words, rather than investing in our $145 million investment pool, where there's a shared risk of loss, if they're looking for a slightly higher term, they may invest as partners with us in specific deals. It doesn't happen very often, but there are a few investors that have that kind of higher risk appetite. So that's really what a guaranteed investment is all about.
Can you,
Thanks, Jen.
sorry, were there more questions? Sorry.
No
I have
more
a question.
questions. I did want to point out that Michelle put a link in the chat that's a video about the Mola Foods business that Charlene mentioned. It's a YouTube clip.
And I just wanted, I don't know if there was much that the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund could talk about Revision Energy. It's a lot of good work happening with increasing solar generation, which you guys are involved with. So maybe a little snapshot of what that looks like.
Well, I shared in our presentation that we have 2 initiatives up in your area through the power purchase agreement. And they work with the individual investors to bring together these solar projects and then bring them to us. Then we can help finance them that way. So they're a great partner with us, by being able to work with those investors to, who can take advantage of those tax incentives that the nonprofits and municipalities and B Corps can't. And then they bring that package to us and we do an assessment and have done some loans that way. We're looking to grow that. Revision really is doing a great job on the ground, with those projects.
So would that be something that people would go talk to Revision Energy about first, or is that the path?
Well, we could do a direct loan to a business, a business doing it. We could do a direct loan to a Revision Energy, to do some, capital improvements with them. We could also do, so if it's a nonprofit, municipality, or government, they would have to go through, a private investor so that it would work out financially for them because they can't take advantage of the tax benefits. But they should reach out to us and have the conversation, and we can walk them through them and, and can guide them to, it doesn't fit with us. You should, reach out to so-and-so.
Well, the other thing Revision does, which is interesting, is there are some investors, new and potential, that I've spoken with that don't have the size that is required to participate in Revision's program. So they're very kind and they forward them to us and they make smaller investments, which are then allocated to our solar and energy work.
Okay. Interesting. Are there any other questions from participants? Before we, I thought if there aren't any further questions, then Jake's standing by to maybe close out with one of his project stories. And of course, if there are questions after the fact, I oftentimes think about what I've heard and then come up with questions later. Reach out to any of us and we'll make sure that we are able to respond in some way, shape, or form. Great. Okay, Jake, you want to give this another shot? You are muted.
Okay, maybe we should just take this as a cue.
Yeah. Are you
I'm
still
unmuted now.
Okay.
So I assume you can see the screen now. I can prove
Yes.
I actually do this and everyone can be proud of me before we go to bed. Okay. I love this project. It's from my hometown of St. Johnsbury, right up the river from you guys. But Little Dipper's Doodle is a trail at Burke Mountain. For those of you, I mean, childcare centers have some pretty wild names, but this is the best. Little Dipper's Doodle is a trail at Burke Mountain up in East Burke, Vermont. And Robin Bailey taught me to ski, and her family were very active in the ski program up there. She's an incredible entrepreneur and opened this childcare center in in the industrial park between St. Johnsbury and Lyndonville. It's 165 kids, which is massive in that area, from infant to school age. Infant slots, care for infant kids is of course the hardest to find. It's also a 5 stars program. STARS is the quality rating assessment system that the state of Vermont uses to look at childcare programs. So in every way, Little Dibbers Doodle Child Care Center is one of the best. And what's really special about it is that it in the industrial park, it's working to support a lot of swing shift workers as well. So it's open from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. Parents are able to drop their kids off, go to work in the industrial park, pick them back up and go home. It's just an incredible program. They're actually a great example of how the Loan Fund can work with folks too. Many times over the years, we supported Robin when she was in a different, was in a smaller region. We helped finance her move into this industrial park, and we've helped finance her expansion to 165 kids. So it goes to show the relationships that loan funds can have with folks can span years, and we can continue to be there to help them as they continue to grow, and hopefully ideally get them to a place where they do qualify for conventional financing. That's a real success story for us. When we take a business like American Flatbread or any of the others that Aqua Vitae, Kombucha, all the others that have kind of grown into bigger name brands, we can be their bank and be their financier during their salad days, and then eventually they can outgrow us, and that of course frees up all that capital to pass on to the next person. That's how it's supposed to work. But we hate to lose good ones, but we also love to lose good ones because it means that we're doing our job.
Thank you, Jake. We are just about at time. Thank you everyone for joining. Michelle did put a question in there. What else would anybody like to learn about community loan funds? If there's any future event, or you also have everyone's contacts, you can actually directly connect with the community loan fund folks and start the relationship, which would be great. So just rounding out the evening, we'll follow up with an email that includes the recording for this session, some resources, the slide deck. Vital Communities also has a local resource page. We'll include, maybe Erica put that in the chat, but we'll put that in an email. And I just really wanted to thank the wonderful presenters tonight, Michelle, Charlene, Cotton, Jake, and Nora. I'm not sure she's still here. Community loan funds are a local solution and a great opportunity to impact our future through local investing. So I hope everyone learned a bunch tonight and are excited to, participate in our communities more locally through local investing. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thanks, Nora.